When discussing tanks and other armored vehicles, most people look at three primary attributes when evaluating their effectiveness: speed, armor, and firepower. These are certainly the core aspects of what a tank does: speed to get to a fight, firepower to kill other tanks, and armor to keep itself protected. All of these are necessary for a tank to fight effectively. There are other aspects of a tank that should be considered when evaluating it, and today I'm going to look at three of them: optics, gun handling, and maneuverability. These secondary aspects allow a tank to perform one of its primary functions more effectively. When discussing optics, there are two things to keep in mind. Optics allow the tank crew to see farther and more clearly. This means that effective optics have higher zoom and clarity. In War Thunder, tanks fall into two categories: those with fixed zooms and those with variable zooms. A tank with a fixed zoom can only magnify the camera a set amount. This is usually a midway between field of view and magnification, where the gunner can see a good amount of the battlefield, but cannot improve his view of an enemy vehicle. Tanks with variable zooms switch between a far, broad view of the battlefield and a close, narrow view of the target. This demands more discipline, but is overall more effective. Most tanks from the Second World War have fixed zooms, but even those with variable zooms rarely go above 8 times magnification. Only with the advent of second-generation MBTs did high-power variable zooms become commonplace. This also brings a new mechanic relating to optics. Certain tanks link their zoom to the commander's camera, where the commander enjoys a powerful optic and the gunner can only match up to whatever he is looking at. In real tanks, this is useful as the gunner rarely if ever sights his own targets. In War Thunder, most players sight directly from the gun. The other mechanic is thermal imagers, which provide an infrared view of the battlefield, highlighting heat sources even in pitch black. Here, the most important thing is resolution of the thermal imager, where early ones often look worse than simply looking through the glass or camera, while modern ones look as good or better. The importance of optics comes from the need for a tank to discover and identify targets before they can even shoot them. Having the best gun in the world means nothing if everything looks like a tiny dot on the horizon. An effective tank needs to be able to see enemy vehicles and accurately target them to ensure a kill. This allows the tank to be farther back from the fighting, and more accurate with its shots at any range. Those who are less interested in sniping and more interested in brawling would do well to understand the importance of good gun handling. Put simply, gun handling is how quickly the gunner is able to point the gun where he wants it to go. This is affected by a few things. First, how fast the turret can rotate and how quickly the gun can elevate. This is the simplest form of gun handling, where no matter if a tank is moving or stationary, a gunner with better gun handling can point the gun at an enemy tank more quickly. This takes on more importance when moving or encountering an enemy tank unexpectedly, as being the first to fire often means the winner of the duel. If your gun is stuck rotating slowly, your chances of survival quickly go down. Also relating to movement is the bounce of your gun. As tanks bounce on their suspension while driving, the turret and by extension the gun follows as well. Trying to fire a gun while moving or stopping is difficult, though not impossible. However, having to stop against a tank that is stationary gives the enemy the advantage. To mitigate this, some tanks added stabilizers to their guns. The most common guns to have this during World War II were American and British guns, who had a single plane stabilizer, which allowed their tanks to have a completely flat gun while moving slowly, or quickly get on target before the tank has even stopped moving. This advantage cannot be understated, as the majority of tank encounters in War Thunder involve two tanks coming up to one another, and being able to shoot faster wins most duels. Post-war, almost every vehicle has a two-plane stabilizer, which allows the vehicle to have its gun on target at all times. The final aspect of tank capability to discuss is maneuverability. Related to speed but notably distinct, maneuverability refers to a tank's capability to not just go forward, but to rotate and reposition itself in combat. While almost every tank and fighting vehicle has placed emphasis on the ability to drive forward, fewer were able to reverse or traverse at an equal rate. This was usually a consequence of transmission priorities or capabilities, where reverse gears would be sacrificed to have greater forward control, or the tank simply lacked the capability to rotate both treads independently. In real combat, tanks rarely need to reposition themselves so aggressively, but in War Thunder the ability to reverse out of a combat or quickly change heading can be a valuable tool in any tank's arsenal. It allows the tank to very quickly take a shot and escape to safety, or if the tank is more stationary, such as a casemate tank destroyer, can very easily turn to any direction without the need to move forwards or backwards. Few tanks in World War II had either of these traits, but most post-war tanks, barring Soviet MBTs, had the capability to quickly reposition in any manner. By knowing these advantages, you can more effectively choose which tanks you play in combat. Identifying and laying on targets increases your lethality, and maneuverability can keep you alive. Study the capabilities of your own and enemy tanks, and you can be a better tanker. For more War Thunder content, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.